So I think, therefore, the obvious thing is, Andrew, to start with you and ask how you're getting on.
Yeah, thanks. Well, firstly, nice to be here, and to see you as well, Glenn. Yeah, going as well as can be expected. I mean, it's been a tough 7 months since Ruth died, and probably a even tougher 12 months leading up to her death. But I think one thing you realise when you've got young kids is that life doesn't stand still. It always moves forward. They're busy, they're at school, and there's plenty of jobs to do in and around the house. So I've been very much on duty and just navigating our way through it one day at a time, really. It's definitely got a bit easier, but at the same time, that sort of grief doesn't leave you, and you just have days where you remember, and that's part of the process, I suppose.
Yeah. Have you found that people have found it hard to know what to say to you, and conversations have been awkward? And
very much, Glenn, I'm sure you'll agree with me. I found myself drawn to people that have been through similar experiences because, first of all, you're trying to glean some information off them as to how this might play out in time. You've never been down this route before, or certainly I hadn't. And people that haven't been through it, they find it hard. They empathise greatly, but they're worried about saying the wrong thing or putting their foot in it, and so sometimes that can be a bit awkward and jilted. Even though, from my point of view, I don't think you can say the wrong thing. Really, it's not something that people should worry about. But definitely, people who've been through it before, you've got a connection there, and that makes it easier to have probably more in-depth conversations, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's sort of interesting. You don't know how you're going to go until you go through it, and hopefully a lot of people won't go through it. But yeah, I think for me personally, I have some amazing people in my life, and I think that makes a huge difference. You realise, puts life in perspective. You realise what's important, and it is the people in your life. All these other rubbish things we worry about on a daily basis are not important. And if you've got the good people in your life, from a manager to my family to friends, they make a massive, massive difference. And in that respect, so I've been very lucky.
Yeah. It's interesting. Andrew said it's got a little bit easier, but days when haven't. I mean, where are you with all that process, Glenn?
Well, it's life. Like Andrew said, it doesn't matter how bad things get. The sun comes up the next day, and life goes on. And I think to have children actually gives you something to focus on. And kids are pretty resilient. And you focus on them, try to keep life as normal as possible for them, and off they go. And if they're going well, it has a positive impact on you as well. So, I've been lucky enough to have met someone else, and Sarah coming into my life and my children's life's been incredible. And we've got Madison, who's now 3, but she does a lot for the McGrath Foundation as well. And so it's just life. It's a funny thing. You don't know how you're going to react until you put in that situation. So, I could come out and say, every day is great, but it's not. I just think everyone's got their own battles and challenges to face, and it's how you pick yourself up, how you carry on, and the people you have in your life. And, that was my battle. Unfortunately, Straussy, that's yours, and, everyone's got something they need to get up, pick themselves up from, and continue on.
Do you still have days where you do flashback to Jane?
Well, the foundation means that she's always there. James and Holly, she's always there. So it's, I'm not one who lives in the past too much. I try to live for now and sort of plan for the future. So, but what the foundation's achieving, so something out of something that was pretty horrendous, so much positives come out. So you try to look at it from that perspective. But it is what it is, and there are things that sort of jilt memories and what have you, but you just get out there and try to do the best you can. And I always said what helped me was thinking, if I'm not handling things and the kids are unhappy, I know one person who would be really unhappy with me, and it would have been Jane. So that sort of allowed me to pick myself up and to continue in life, and to have met someone else and to move to where we are now. So, life is what it is.
We all share the one thing in common. We've sat there when our wives have been diagnosed with cancer. I'll never forget that moment. And you can't really describe it, can you? Can you remember, Andrew, when you...
Yeah, well, I remember it very vividly, And, for us, it wasn't just a diagnosis of cancer. It was that this is stage 4 cancer and therefore it's incurable.
You knew that right away.
Yeah, and so, the idea that, a couple of weeks before Ruth had been absolutely fine, and suddenly here she was, A, gravely ill, and B, having to get our heads around the fact that her days are numbered. I mean, all our days are numbered, but in her sense, they were very much numbered.
Did you know actually that as well? You knew that.
Well, we didn't know. We didn't know that actually, and it could have been 5 years. It could have been 3 years. It could have been 1 year. But we knew that she was going to die of this cancer, and I think we all live in this little bubble that we just expect to live forever. And I think those of us that have been with people that have battling cancer, you realise actually, this surrounds us everywhere you go. And it's not just people who've got cancer, it's people that have heart attacks and whatever. And we seem to sort of isolate ourselves from it or not want to. It's not that we don't want to be involved, we're not involved with it until you are. And then when you're in the middle of it, you're entering this very strange world of scans and incredible anxiety and new terms you've never heard before, and relying on doctors whose judgment you've got to trust. It's a brutally tough journey, isn't it? And thankfully for a lot of people, they come out the other side of it. Unfortunately, there's still over 40% of people that get cancer don't come out the other side. So it's the battle with cancer is a long way from being finished. Let's put it that way.
Did you know, Glenn? I mean, I think you and I are similar in that both wives were in remission. Was Jane in remission? Then it came back. Yeah. And I'm in that position with Emma where she's in remission, and we've got scans on Saturday again. It's that, as Andrew was saying, that horrible feeling of what's there. That's hard to deal with, isn't it? But when it comes back, you think you've beaten it. Yeah.
So for Jane, life was going along well. 6 years, they say 5 years. You get past that 5-year mark, happy days, and she had the recurrence. But to me, the worst part always was waiting for scans. You go for the scans, you're waiting for the results.
And the results of the scans.
You're in no man's land. You can't plan, you can't do anything. Whereas even if you find out it's bad, okay, this is what we have to do. You can focus and put your energy into it, and off you go. When you're waiting, you don't know what's happening. It's a horrible place. So, and we're a little bit different to Straussy, where, the doctors kept telling Jane it was just going to be a chronic disease, something you're going to have to live with for a long time. And it was only up until the final 2 weeks where, things got that bad that prior to that we thought, we're going to beat this, and then bang, we're in trouble. Yeah. So, it's you've got to try to remain positive, but it's not easy.
No. But that must be that point where, in your case, Andrew, where you knew that actually the clock was ticking, that for all the optimism, for all the, you hear it all the time, don't you? Get out there and fight and all that stuff that you get, you sort of get drummed into you with the chemo and so on. But actually, suddenly, it's not going to end well.
Yeah, and I think, that term, the fight against cancer, you got to fight, I think it's an unhelpful one. Yeah. It's actually...
Everyone fights.
Yeah, but exactly, and it's actually medical science's fight against cancer, and you're almost the sort of petri dish for that to happen. I think there's so many people, you've got to remain positive, you need to live your life, you've got to give it everything you've got, but at the same time, I think it's unhelpful to say to people that don't make it through, well, it's just because you didn't fight hard enough. I think that's unhelpful. But, I think for us, we had a number of treatment options that worked, but all of them only worked for a short period of time. And it was about sort of 2 or 3 months before Ruth died, I think we became, we were getting into the last line of treatment. And that's where Ruth, I think, was incredible in the sense that she sort of became accepting of the fact this was going to happen. She was still fighting it, and she just said, listen, we need to prepare ourselves. And one thing that I want to do is I want to do death well. And that means I need to prepare myself for it. We need to get the kids prepared for it. We need to go and get some help ourselves, some professional help, so that we can then enjoy the rest of the time we have together, knowing that we've done everything we can to prepare ourselves for what's to come our way. And that's an unusual attitude, I think.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
And
you just want to shut all those thoughts away, don't
exactly.
you?
And it was confronting for me, and even more so for her. But it took great courage and bravery for her to go there, and I think we're far better off as a result of her having that courage and bravery to do that.
Hence, why you've focused on bereavement counselling and preparation for the trust.
Yeah,
Foundation.
well, I think what Ruth and I were both most petrified about was the effect this was going to have on the kids. The kids are your everything, aren't they? And the thought that, you have these thoughts at the back of your mind that they're going to just not going to be able to deal with it, and they wouldn't be able to do school, and you'd see all these behavioural changes, and so for us in particular, going to our counsellor Jenny Thomas, who is a child grief and loss counsellor, and just explain the situation, and for her to actually say to us, listen, there's certain things you want to do. You don't want to lock them away from this. They need to be involved in it. They need to understand what's going on. You need to be open. You need to be not afraid to cry in front of them and explain how you're feeling, and that gives them permission to say how they're feeling. If you just do those things, there's nothing preventing them having a really rich and full and happy life. They're going to miss their mum terribly. That's a given, but this won't be the end of them. It's going to change their life, but that doesn't mean they can't have a great life. And for Ruth to hear that, it was just like the weight of the world came off her shoulders. And for me also, who, getting my head around the idea of having to look after them going forward, it was a huge source of comfort for me as well.
Yeah. How did you do it with the kids? How did you tell them?
Well, that was by far the hardest thing to do. I still remember it like yesterday, taking the boys to one side and saying, listen, just come back from the hospital, and the doctors have said we're going to have to say goodbye to mum soon. And, that's something you never want to have to do with your kids.
And is that what you've been advised to say? How have you been told to say it?
Yeah, I think I had some advice, but ultimately, as a parent, you've got to just tell the kids what's going to happen, and then try and provide the right sort of support for them and allow them to go through. And where we were very fortunate is that Ruth was still very much herself right to the end. She wasn't actually that unwell, which seems odd to say, but she could speak, and she was recognisable as herself, which made it a bit easier for the kids, because their memories of their mum are her being well and not really sick, which I think helps.
Tough question, but I'll ask it anyway. Were the kids there when she died? Did you think that was the right thing to do, or
not right while she died? They came and said goodbye to her probably 5 or 6 hours afterwards. Prior to her dying.
Yeah.
And that was their choice. Actually, I
Right.
gave them the choice whether they wanted to be there or not, and they didn't. And Ruth would have preferred them not to be there right at the end as well. So.
Yeah.
But we had some great family time in the last couple of days. It's still hard to think about. I think that's the hardest thing of all, is that moment where it all finishes. And then you're like, wow, okay, we need to find a way forward from here.
And from that point, did the counselling that you had, did it in any way prepare you actually when the moment happened and the weeks and months after? Could it actually prepare you for the shock and the pain and the grief of that?
It couldn't fully prepare me or the kids, but it meant we had a plan. So I knew what I had to try and do with the kids and what I had to try and avoid doing. This is one of those circumstances where the British stiff upper lip really doesn't work very well. That idea of, and there's so many people I've heard who said, listen, my mum died and my dad died, and we never spoke about it again ever as a family. And we just moved on. That's unhelpful, and that means you don't process it properly. So I had a plan in place for what to do with the kids, but you are in this new world. I often say there's like a life you've built for 21 years just comes crashing down completely, and then you've got to try and build something new from that. And I still don't know what it's going to look like for me. Glenn, you're further down the line now, so you have rebuilt, but it's a long process. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. I don't have you down as a big crier, Glenn, but I guess you did.
I have
emotional
moments, I'm sure.
Yeah, that helped to get it. Did you have the same sort of experience as Andrew? With
very much. Just
preparation?
Listening to Straussy there brought back so many memories. Once we realised that was it, 3 days out, to tell James and Holly that Mummy was going to pass away.
And how old were they then?
Was easily the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Yeah. And
just hearing Andrew there just takes you right back there. And then, Jane was at home. We had had a nurse at home sort of looking after her, and she passed away there. And the kids went up and they gave her a kiss, said goodbye as she left. And the fact that we prepared them a little bit 3 days prior made that so much easier. But still, telling them what was about to happen was worse than actually for me when it actually did happen. And I think Jane got that bad that it was probably a little bit of a godsend in the end that she wasn't suffering anymore. And so, it's those memories are always going to be there. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that go through something very similar. And, if we can make life a little bit easier in some way, that, McGrath Foundation plays, it's about support, about awareness. What Strauss is doing sort of similar, a little bit different. But again, that support and making life just a little bit easier in a pretty terrible time.
Yeah. Why did you pick? Let's talk about the foundation. You two got so much to share on that.
Yeah.
Why have you chosen particularly the bereavement side of it, Andrew? For that.
Well, I think what you're trying to do is you look at your experience, and as we said before, you just don't know nothing of this world until you're in it, and say, well, where are the gaps that aren't adequately filled at the moment? And there were two things that were glaringly obvious for us. Number one, Ruth had a rare form of lung cancer that people who've never smoked get. So by definition, there's not much research into these. They present very differently. No one knows why people get them. It tends to be younger people that get them and more women than men. And it seems to be on the increase as well. So we need to understand more about what's turning this on, and also to try and diagnose it earlier. 90% of people are diagnosed at stage 4. It's too late. So we need more information.
There's no symptoms.
Very few. I mean, the symptoms often come from the secondary tumours, and that's why, because the lungs have a lot of capacity. So the doctors need to, this is unknown territory. They don't know much about it, and we need a lot of research and sharing of knowledge to try and find a way of diagnosing and hopefully overcoming these rare forms of lung cancer. And then the secondary, the bereavement support, there is, the NHS provide some support for patients, but not for their families. And you can, for very good reasons, they have limited resources. And then there's also support post-bereavement. A lot of charities do that, which is great. But the pre-bereavement, I think, is your way of being potentially ahead of the game and proactive, and encouraging people to have those conversations, husbands and wives have those conversations, those difficult ones you really don't want to have. Yeah. If you have them, you're in a better place for it, and you need professional help to do those properly.
Did you get to the end of that conversation the first time you did it? Or was there a point it was, I can't, let's come back to this another time or something? Were you able to talk the whole thing through the first time you did sit down and talk about Ruth's death?
Well, I think, no, we didn't just talk the whole thing through, but I don't think we would have been able to talk it through in nearly such a coherent way without our counsellor being there with us.
Oh, they were there at the same time.
I mean, she doesn't see, she wants to see the couple together, so she enables that conversation, and she gives you advice along the way, and most particularly, she's focusing on the kids and kind of how to help them navigate their way through it. But it's like all counselling. I think that it's a little bit of it can be a bit of a dirty word in the sense that people go, I don't need a counsellor, or you only go to a counsellor if you're really, really struggling. And the message that we're trying to do is like, these guys can really help. They can really help you at a terrible time in your life where you've got so much going on upstairs. You've got so many practical things to deal with. You think about it, Glenn, the funeral and the memorial service and the wills and all that sort of stuff. And to have someone that I can just check in with every 3 or 4 weeks just to go, this is what's happened. And for her to go, okay, well, that sounds great. You might want to try X, Y, and Z. It makes me feel in control at a time where I could easily be very much out of control.
Yeah. And Glenn, you said that a nurse was with Jane.
Yep.
Is that what gave you the thought of then the McGrath Foundation, the nursing?
No, well, it was when Jane had the recurrence, all of a sudden there was a breast care nurse there, and the difference that made in our lives, but especially Jane's, was incredible. We soon realised there was not enough of these amazing people out there. So we relaunched as the McGrath Foundation in 2005. So Jane was heavily involved in that. And it was at that time, Jane set it up with Tracy Bevan, Michael's wife at the time, and I was playing cricket. So for me to play cricket and be off on tour with the Australian team meant everything's going well at home. So that's what Jane wanted. So basically they ran that. A lot of my sponsors were involved, and I did bits and pieces and media and what have you, but I was still focusing on playing cricket. And then when Jane passed away in 2008, that's when I sort of stepped up a lot more. I became chairman, and then I've been heavily involved with the foundation ever since. But it was Jane. That was Jane's dream. Yes. That every person, every family going through breast cancer had access to a breast care nurse where they lived. That's what she wanted, and she had involvement in that, and that's why she wanted to be the McGrath Foundation, not the Jane McGrath Foundation. But that was her personal choice, and off we went. So we had very clear objectives, and then it sort of when Jane passed away, it just the support and goodwill and from people was amazing. Yeah. So that makes me feel very proud. But it's still there's a lot of work that goes into it, and we've got an amazing team at the foundation. The people behind you still have to get out there and drive it. And I think with what we're doing, looking to make a positive difference in people's lives, and I speak to people every day, and they tell me their story and the impact that the breast care nurses had. And I think that's what it's all about. But the problem there is everybody knows someone close to them, either a friend or a family member that's been through breast cancer or some form of cancer. So it's very relatable by looking to provide support and hopefully improve the quality of life. It's not about quantity, it's about quality of life, and that's what they do. And I remember Jane was explaining in the simplest form what a breast care nurse allowed her to do. When she was first diagnosed, there was no nurse, there was nothing available. So she'd come home, have all these things going on in her head, and jump on the internet. And there's so much information, so much misinformation. She'd get off feeling worse and she was a mess. But having a breast care nurse there, or having that support, she could ask 1,000 questions. What's coming up next? Why am I feeling like this? And the nurse had all the answers. Allowed her to come home and be a wife, a mother, and a friend. And that was the most important thing. And that's the simplest view. It allowed her to be her. And, if that's what a nurse can do to all these families, and having a supporting role can allow these people to go home and be themselves, that's an amazing gift that you can give someone.
Yeah. We had a deal, no internet.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Did you go on there?
Easier said than done, though, isn't it?
Did you resort to looking stuff up?
I did go on the internet occasionally, but I tended to... it's such an unhealthy thing, isn't it? Because there's just so much stuff out there, and it's not relevant to you. Every cancer is different. But that's where you rely on that team, that medical team looking after you. And the consultant is obviously, they're there to give you the right treatments. But the nurse is there to help you navigate your way through it and answer the questions you may have once you've digested everything. And it's the same thing. It's having a support network, people that you trust that have been through this before, who can just help you through it and make it easier for you.
Listen to Glenn and the amazing success of the McGrath Foundation. I mean, does that sort of, again, give you more resolve as to what we're going to enjoy tomorrow?
Yeah, well, I played in one of the McGrath Foundation days at Sydney, and I was blown away. And I'll tell you what, I was blown away firstly by how willing everyone was to be a part of it. Not the players are very willing, but just everyone who turned up were determined to make this a great spectacle. And then to understand how much actually, both awareness and money comes out of it, which actually then makes a difference to people's lives. I think that's you guys have paved the way. It makes it easier for those of us that follow in that sense. But I hope we can just be, it's year one for us. We're not expecting to be all singing or dancing year one. But if we can just in some way replicate what they've done, then I'll be very happy. And I know that Ruth will be looking down, feeling very sort of honoured, a bit embarrassed and very proud as well that we've been able to do something that really does make a difference.
Yeah. Had you talked about the possibility of a like a McGrath day at a test match? Did you ever have that conversation on?
No, we didn't get that far, actually. Yeah. And I think Ruth would have gone, no, don't do that, please. You know, it's not about me and everything. And this isn't about her, actually. This is about her experience and using it as a way to make something positive come out of the situation.
Yeah. And red? Why red?
Red, mainly because it's Ruth's favourite colour, actually.
Okay.
And so when we designed the logos and everything, I mean, there's a lot that goes on to bringing a foundation together, but we wanted that to be a reflection of her. So the logo is her signature, and it's her favourite colour. And I can just imagine it I can imagine Lords tomorrow and just what it's going to look like with everyone turning up in red. It's going to be a magnificent spectacle.
How will you feel?
I don't know. I don't know how you felt. I mean, in some ways, it's going to blow me away. It's going to be emotional. You know, we've got some really interesting stuff there. My kids are going to be there and family and whatever. So it's going to be a tough day, but a brilliant day as well. How did you find it?
Because it was about 7 months after Jane passed away was that first pink test, and we didn't know what to expect. And it was funny, we'd gone in and spoken to Channel 9. We had a few ideas of what we thought was possible, which they shot down every single one of them. They said, it's great ideas, but none of this is going to happen. By day 3, everything we suggested was happening, and it was incredible. And it goes to show, and to see everyone turn up in pink and just what's been created shows the generosity of people, but it also shows the power of sport. Sport is something that crosses all boundaries and can really bring people together, and that's what it's done back home. Hopefully, Lords is SCG, my favourite ground in the world. Lords, very, very close second. So I'd love to see something very similar emulated there here at Lords. I think that would be very, very special, and it goes to show the power of sport and the power of people when they get behind it. And
Any tips for him? How's he going to handle the day tomorrow?
Good luck. Just try to, what you're saying about Ruth. Jane never wanted to be about her. It's about the support that you're providing and hopefully having a positive difference in other people's lives. So, my kids were there, the family were there, and I always thought, it's more about a celebration of her life and the impact and legacy that she can leave, especially for James and Holly. And every year they're there. On day 3, the players sign their baggy pink caps and come out, present them as they walk out in the field. And Holly and James is there, and they're shaking the players' hands as they come out. So they're still involved, and my wife Sarah and Madison now are sort of nearby as well. So it's about family.
Has it become any easier for the kids at that moment?
I think they're going along really well. I think again they've had some good people. It hasn't always been easy, but they've got some good people in their life, and the impact Sarah's had on them coming in, she's been amazing. And they love her to bits. She loves, and it's and having Madison's brought our family closer together, and all these things I thought were impossible when Jane passed away. I just said I'm never going to meet anyone else, and I was adamant about it. But everyone's different. Because the other thing is, I've had a lot of people come up after their partner's passed away, and it's been a period of time, and they've met someone else. And the thing is about when's the right time. And I tell them there is no right time. It's up to the individual, and who knows what's going to happen. But that what's been created there with the Sydney Test, it just gets bigger and better every year. It's nearly the whole test. I thought after 9 tests it would start sort of tapering, or after a few it might start, but it's just getting bigger and better every year, and it's now something actually very special on the Australian cricket calendar or Australian sport calendar that people right around the country really get involved with and get behind, and that makes it so much special. And here in England, there's the power of sport and the amount of people you get, something, a commonality there, you can create something pretty special.
Yeah, and I think the other point, just to raise briefly, is how many doors have been opened for us. This is the busiest summer of cricket ever in English cricket history, and we came in with this idea very late in the piece. So for the MCC and the ECB to just fully commit to it and say, throw precedent out the window and go, listen, we haven't done that before, but go on, we'll do this and we'll do that. It completely blows me away. And your point about the cricket family coming together and people wanting to help and be a part of it, it's just extraordinary. And hopefully what we will see on the day is a testament to all that hard work that people put in.
Yeah. I think it's about pride as well. You know, I feel quite proud of that day and what's been created. You should feel an immense, sense of pride as well, because it is something pretty special.
You both had to do it all very publicly too. I mean, clearly you wouldn't have a foundation, I don't think, unless you were Andrew Strauss and Glenn McGrath. Well, actually, Jane said that, didn't she, to be fair? But I don't know, the sort of the role model side of it perhaps comes into that, don't you? I mean, former England captain, cushy life, everything's a bed of roses, and suddenly, bang, this can happen to anybody.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think while Ruth was going through that cancer journey, I think I felt a great need for us to do that quite privately, actually. I didn't want to necessarily be sharing every scan result with everyone or whatever. I think now it's just, luckily enough, I have a platform that I can use. And if I want people to talk about grief and be more open about it, and then I need to role model that myself. And I'm okay doing that. I think it's fine. It actually helps me deal with things a bit as well. And I've got the bit between my teeth. I want to make this foundation a success. I want it to be a worthwhile legacy for Ruth, and I want people to have a better life experience as a result of it. So hopefully we can get somewhere near there.
Yeah. And tomorrow, how are you going to engage with people? Do you know? Are you going out into the middle, and how's it going to work?
Yeah, we've got all sorts of things planned. I don't want to necessarily give it all away, actually, but look, I'm going to be very obviously visible on the day and be doing various bits and pieces. My kids are going to be involved, and you will recognise quite a lot from what's happened at the Sydney Test match, because they do it so well in terms of the caps and the kit and all that sort of thing. And so it's going to be a full kind of schedule for me over the course of the day. But I just can't wait. I think it's going to be an amazing day.
Yeah. Again, I think what we all know is you'll have millions of people behind you. We'll be thinking of you, cheering you on in a difficult time. And Glenn, fantastic. The McGrath Foundation. So how many nurses have you got out there now?
So we've got 132 nurses at the moment out there. The end goal, we've done a bit of needs assessment, around about 250 nurses. There are other breast care nurses out there that do an amazing job, but that 247 McGrath nurses will cover the rest of the country. And, we reckon in another 3 years we may be able to achieve that. So, but, that's been amazing. But the thing I'm probably most proud of is we're now setting a new standard of cancer care in Australia. And that's something I'm proud of. We have we've got 11 metastatic breast care nurses, so when secondaries, when it metastasizes, and maybe that's an area where we can have an impact in other cancer streams as well. But also, if our learnings can have impact in people going through prostate or lung or whatever, then it's a massive win. So in that respect, setting the new standards, having a positive impact across everything. We get support from people right around the country, federal government support as well, because they see the positive impact and the difference it's making in the health system too. So there's a lot of positives there. So I feel immensely proud of what we're achieving, but it's not easy. And the way I view it also, we've been very lucky in what we've done in our life. To get out there and play cricket, represent our country, is something very special. And to be lucky enough to have done that, it also gives us a bit of a profile and allows us to be in a stronger position than a lot of other people to be able to give back. And then if we come out, we're talking about it, it's something that we've been through, and we're coming out sharing our experience, that can also allow other people to talk about it. And if you just put it to the back of your mind, don't say anything, it's horrendous. If you come out and talk about it and share your experience and realise there's help there's other people that have been through it, it makes a massive difference as well. So, that's one of the big differences, Straussy can make, just by sharing his experience, allows other people to think, if he can do it, I can do it as well.
Yeah. And just last one, Andrew, I mean, when will you know if the foundation's been a success? What do you, especially with the bereavement side, which really interests me. I mean, how actually are you going to judge that? What are you looking to do with that side?
Yeah, I mean,
apart from awareness.
It's such early days for us. We haven't set targets, and where we're slightly different to the McGrath Foundation is we'll be handing out grants to charities that are already established. It just otherwise there's just too much infrastructure costs, and basically we'd be replicating what other people are doing. So it's a case of us handing over the grants for a particular cause. A charity saying we want to do X, Y, or Z. We hand over the grant, and then we obviously will check in with them to see that they're doing what they said they would do. But again, we're always just looking for gaps where support services where they aren't currently support services, and so it's about plugging those many holes that are out there that people just have no access to this stuff.
Okay. Good luck tomorrow, Andrew.
Can I just ask you one question? I mean, you're not a man that's well known for your dress sense, but have you been giving some thought about what you're going to be wearing?
Do you know,
tomorrow?
I actually, when I got the thing of the business about tomorrow, I actually had to go to my wardrobe. I don't have a red shirt. I mean, I haven't got one. I've had to order one.
Well, you didn't have pink shirt before you came out to
No.
as well.
Well,
now you've got several. He'll have several of them before
I'm proud to wear pink now, and I'll be proud to wear red.
Very good. Thank you.
You've woken my fashion awareness. We'll be cheering you on tomorrow.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Good luck, man.